When the grief comes up, or you feel it coming up around the birthdays or around the Mother's Day, and you feel that stuff coming up, just welcome it in, give it the time. Like, hey, look, all right, grief, you got 15 minutes. All right, boom, let me check in, do my breath work, and then, all right, cool, I got stuff to do.
What's up, YouTube fam? This is your girl, Loryn Denise, host of This Too Shall Suck podcast, a fresh perspective on grief, back with another episode. So this is actually going to be a two-part episode. So I'm going to be bringing on two of my favorite human beings, two of the dynamic duo, as I call them. They have created a multi-million-dollar business, and they are here to talk about how the grief has helped them, has propelled them, has showed them just different things in business. And so I'm really, really excited. On this episode, I'm going to be having my brother from another mother, Marquel Russell, the king of Client Attraction University. And we're going to be talking about his grief that happened to him when he was younger and how it has helped him in his business and being able to recognize in his clients the things that he needs to recognize in order for them to grow. And all of just the different lessons that he's learned that has helped him create a multi-million-dollar business. So if you are thinking about getting into entrepreneurship, if you are thinking about starting a business, if you have been through any type of grief and you are in business, you need to watch this episode and you need to share it out to all of your entrepreneur friends. So as I always say, I can't wait to see what you guys love the most. Leave a comment, drop it at the end. You know I love talking to you guys in the comment section, and I hope you enjoyed this episode. Welcome back, welcome back, welcome back. Woo! Y'all heard the vocals? I know if you're looking at me on YouTube, like, why is she singing so hard? Welcome back, my loves. Welcome back to another week's episode. If this is your first time here, welcome. What it do, baby? If this is your 38th, 39th, if you've been here for 30 plus episodes, appreciate you for rocking with your girl. So on today's episode, we're going to be diving into grief in business, how grief can affect you in your business, how the things that have happened to you that have caused grief in your life have helped you in your business, how it can maybe have negatively affect you, not only in your business, but your personal life. So yeah, I'm really excited for this. I'm excited to have one of my very favorite people on. I call him my favorite headache. He cracks me up. His name is Marquel, and you guys know that I do events, but I only do events for one company now. And he is one of the two-parters, shall I say, of this company. So this is actually going to be a two-part episode because I wanted to bring both Marquel and Andre on. Because they are the dynamic duo behind the Client Attraction University. And so they both have just really amazing stories of, kind of overcoming their grief and how it helped them build this multi-million-dollar massive company that it is now, right? And so uh I told them both that I feel that every time I hear them on an interview, they're interviewed a lot of times, right? Because they've created this massive business. They've created millions and millions of dollars in client revenue success stories, right? And so people always ask them about like the success and how they did it and the sales and all of this stuff, right? I was like, but I feel like people don't ask you guys about you and who you all are. And I know you all obviously because you all are two of my favorite humans and you all are close to me. But I feel like when you're out in the public and it's like, this is Marquel and this is Andre, like people don't ask you guys about you. And so I wanted to bring them on to talk about that, to talk about, just the things that they've gone through in their life that has caused some grief in their life and that have caused them to just grow and help them again create this massive, massive company. So I'm super excited for you all to hear this interview with Marquel. Be ready to have your edges snatched. But no, his story really, he just has a really, really good story. And I think it was really important to bring him on. So we're about to go into the new year, right? And so sometimes we have these like amazing goals and I'm going to start this business or I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, right? And I am all for entrepreneurship. Obviously, that's what I do. But I think sometimes we get stuck or we get in our own ways or things that have happened in our past cause us to work a certain type of way or to get stuck and not be able to move forward, right? And so being an entrepreneur, and going into this new year. And I know a lot of people have a lot of dreams and goals and big ways of doing things. If 2020 didn't teach us anything, it's, you can't always rely on maybe that 9 to 5 that you had. So a lot of people are realizing, like, you know what, I think I can kind of step out and do my own thing, right? And so I wanted to bring on somebody who, somebody's, shall I say, who have done that, who have stepped out, who have created this massive, again, multi-million dollar business, have helped others do the same, and just talk about how the grief propelled them, and how it caused them to operate in a way that has allowed them to dominate in the space that they're in, right? Because we all need motivation. And, you always hear like the Eric Thomases and all of these people, which are amazing. You do need those amazing people. But sometimes, like, we have to talk about, the things that happened to us in our past, which cause us to operate in the way that we do, which have ultimately helped us create this life and these dreams that we want. Because at the end of the day, we all know that grief is, it can be that sad thing. It can be that terrible thing. It can be that thing that puts you in a dark corner, right? But it also can be that thing that propels you, that's beautiful, that can help you move forward in life, that can help you turn that pain into purpose, that can help you do all those things. Because I'm doing it. I am that, right? I'm living that. I'm walking in my literal pain, turning into a purpose to help others heal in their grieving journey. And I want anyone who is in that type of pain, who is in that type of heavy grief, to be able to look and say, you know what, these people have used their grief to propel them, but also have processed their grief, whether it was then or now. And that is also what's helping them continue in life. And so I'm really excited for you guys to hear this interview. Um, just as I always say, take notes, again, prepare to get your edges snatched, because there's one point in this interview and y'all gonna know what I'm talking about, because I had to like stop and like gather myself. I was like, sir. It is so good. So I can't wait for you guys to hear it. And we're gonna get into this break. Y'all already know how it goes. And right after the break, you're gonna hear from me and my big bro, Marquel Russell. All right, y'all, we're back. And like I told y'all, I'm excited to have this next guest on. He is my brother from another mother, one of my favorite headaches. Like I told y'all, this is a two-parter. Two of my favorite headaches, two of my favorite human beings are on, talking about how they built this massive, massive, amazing business. He told me not to read the bio, but I'm still going to read it because I need y'all to know who is in the building. He's my brother. However, y'all don't know my brother yet. So let me just go on and read it. I know he's going to be rolling his eyes over here, but we going to get into it. Marquel Russell, arguably one of the best when it comes to revenue growth for coaches and consultants. He is a multi-million dollar revenue generator, best-selling author, rapid business growth strategist, and coach who has earned the title of King of Client Attraction and been called one of the greatest marketing geniuses of our time. His genius lies in his innate talent of drenching clients and a downpour of qualified leads that convert into more clients and increase profits. His sharpshooting approach to lead generation has helped coaches and consultants pull in more than $250 million in client success stories, billions of ad impressions, millions of high quality leads, and tens of thousands of clients. From high school dropout and former drug dealer to multi-million dollar rapid business growth strategist and coach, Marquel is a walking billboard for the lyrics, started from the bottom, now I'm here. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome my brother, Marquel Russell. I'm gonna get one of them horns one
Thank
day.
you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank
Yeah,
you,
thank
thank
you
you,
for
thank you.
being here.
I'm
I
honored to
appreciate
be here. I was wondering when I was gonna get my opportunity. I saw all these interviews kept popping. I'm
it. Here
like,
you go.
am
Here
I
you go.
not good enough, or maybe
Here
I'm
you go.
not? Maybe I'm just not flawed, right? Maybe she's saving the best for last. I'm not. Maybe she's saving the best for last. I'm not sure, but like I definitely was thinking about it. So I'm
Y'all,
glad to be here.
you see what I'm saying? You see what I said? My favorite headache? Because, see, he's my favorite debate partner. Y'all know I only do events for one company. It is their company, and he is my favorite debate
For
partner.
sure.
He's my
Thank you,
favorite
thank
debate
you,
partner.
thank you,
But no, for real, thank you
thank
for
you.
being here. Like I shared with you, a lot of people ask you about the business because you've created this massive, amazing business. You just heard over $250 million in revenue for your clients.
It's
And
actually
so,
500 now. We gotta update that bio.
okay,
Yeah, we gotta.
excuse
Yeah, yeah.
me.
Yeah, we gotta update the bio.
Over
Yeah, we
500
gotta update
million
it.
in
It's
revenue
all good.
generated?
Yeah, 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 for sure.
Well,
Hmm.
pardon. Y'all heard it. Y'all heard it here first. Exclusive, exclusive, exclusive.
Hmm. For
Over
sure, for
$500
sure,
million.
for
So
sure.
y'all have created this amazing, massive company. But I feel like people don't ask about you. People don't ask about
Agree.
Marquel Russell. They're like, "Oh, King of Pine Attraction," but I know you, I know a little bit about your story, with your mom and just things that you've been through. So I really wanted to bring
Mhm.
you on to talk about that part of it because I think, of course, anyone who's grieving, especially in the entrepreneurship realm, how it impacts you whether it's on a daily basis, whether it's on a monthly basis, whether it's making business decisions or whatever. So, my first question I always like to ask is, can you tell a little bit about your grieving journey? And it can be, with your mom, it could be a jail, it could be whatever you want, but I know specifically with your mom. Can you talk a little bit about
Yeah.
that so people know, who you are?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, for sure. So a lot of people don't know is like the first part of my life, like up to third grade, I actually lived with my aunt, and my aunt was, and I don't really like to say this in a disrespectful way, but I'm just gonna call it what it is. My aunt was a crackhead, and that's kind of what I grew up in earlier in my life, up to third grade, before I actually met my real mom. My earlier part of my life, I actually thought my aunt was my mom, and I didn't even realize that was traumatizing. And so we had a relationship coach, a marriage coach, last early this year, and I was telling them about that, and they were like, "Well, that was very traumatizing." And I was like, "It's crazy that I never saw that as being traumatic."
Me
And
neither.
they were
Yeah.
like, "Well, no, they was like, no, that's very traumatic because you literally didn't meet your mom until third grade." And I was like, "Huh, I never thought about that." So that was the earlier part, right? And just me being, I woke up one night and my aunt wasn't there, so I was at home by myself, and I'm like 8, right? Because she was out moving around or doing whatever. So that was the earlier part of my life. And then, I still, even when I moved in with my mom, I was still around the drug environment. My mom sold drugs, my granddad sold drugs. So I was still, my cousin sold drugs. So I was still around that. And then, like you said, a few years passed. My granddad died throughout that process, but I'm like, I it took till recently for me to really realize like how numb I've been throughout like literally my entire life. So my
Mm,
granddad passed, saw the funeral, never really cried or anything like that. Even when my mom died, it was like this crazy like peace or something over me. That's the only way I could really explain it.
mhm.
Because like when she was at the hospital, I got to the hospital, I saw her, and I was like, this is crazy, right? But I ain't like break down. Oh my god! Oh my god! Oh my god! Nothing wrong with that. But I was just like, I don't know what happened. But I got into like the waiting room where we all were, and then I broke down in. But when I did the funeral, right? Because I'm like managing the funeral. I'm talking the funeral director. 'Cause I'm the
Right.
oldest out of my sisters, so I'm managing all of that, right? Which is crazy. And of course, my amazing wife was there with me, helping me through this. 'Cause I don't know what to do, right? So at the funeral, I'm speaking. I'm not like crying. People are like looking at me. I'm like, this is weird. I'm like, shouldn't I be crying? Shouldn't I? But so I don't really know. So then I go through that. This whole experience was numb. And I think what's interesting is that I think, which may sound crazy, this numbness that I've had through my trauma, it's also served me in some ways because it helped me become and I think it's probably been a gift and a curse, right? It depends on what you focus
Mhm.
on. But I think it's helped me as being an entrepreneur because most stuff don't affect me like it will affect most people. Does that make sense?
Mm. Mhm. So do you feel like that numbness so obviously, like you said, you didn't know, which is crazy that you didn't know like your mom, like your real mom until 3rd
Yeah.
grade, and it created this
Yeah.
numbness inside of you. I hear you when you're saying like it doesn't affect you in some type of way, but do you feel like it also hinders you in some type of way sometimes?
100%. Because like I know I say it like it doesn't affect me, but I think it does because I just process it differently. And I didn't really realize that until I hired a therapist, right? So, funny story about therapy. So, I hired a therapist last year. A buddy of mine encouraged me to go do it. So, the therapist I was working with, I paid her for like 4 sessions, went through a few sessions, and at the end of it, she was like, I want to continue to take your money. I think everything is fine, blah, blah. And I'm like, all right, cool. And I won't give it to you either if you don't feel like I should give it
Right.
to you, cool.
Right.
So, yeah, so I end up getting introduced to another therapist as I was working with the Next Level Boys Academy with Gary and Dr. Kurt. And as I was working with Dr. Kurt just had a totally different approach, right? And he was able help me able to sort of see a lot of stuff that I was dealing with just the way his approach. So I do think by me being numb, and I didn't really call it numb till I saw a social media post one day, and it was like somebody posted and was like, I didn't this whole time I was thinking I'm strong, but I was actually numb, right?
Mm.
And I was like, that's very interesting. So while I was working with Dr. Kurt, one of his biggest things is focus on the emotional side. Because you know me, so I'm a person who's heavily here, not really here. And one of Dr. Kurt thing, he was like, one of my goals is to shift you from so much here to get you to drop down here more and
Mm-hmm.
do more feeling. And that was super awkward for me, right? But it's it's beginning to play out and like and serve everyone I think better.
Yes, I agree. No, I agree. So let's go back to that, like, because it's funny, like everybody talks about childhood trauma, but like we really don't acknowledge it. And so, like you being now older in your 30s and just recognizing that you meeting your mom in third grade is a trauma. How did that
Mhm.
affect you? Like, how did you like when you heard that? Like, I can imagine you were like, "No, like that's fine." Like, but how did that affect you mentally when you heard that, no, that is a trauma that is still affecting you 30 years later?
It was super insightful, right? Because one another thing that I really learned from Dr. Kurt was like we hold trauma in, right? So this whole life you hold all this trauma in and you never release it just from different experiences, right? Whether that's being in a shootout, being around gunshots being fired off, somebody close to you dying, a lot of that trauma you literally hold in your entire life and it just
Mhm.
manifests, in different ways. So when I heard that, I was like, I never processed that, right? And maybe I've been holding that in my entire life and not realizing it, but I never processed it. So when they said it, I was like, I literally never even thought about it like that.
Right, right, exactly. Cause then, so that's a trauma. So that happens. Then you meet your mom, your real mom. Like, how was
Hmm.
that experience
Yep.
for you? Like at third grade, realizing like, what you mean that ain't my mama?
So you know what's crazy? I really didn't. It's literally like I wasn't mad. I really wasn't questioning it because the situation was better. So the
Mm,
situation I went from to, I was like, all right, well, whatever it is, this is cool. And let me tell you what's crazy. When I met my mom, so like one day, let's call it Tuesday, I met my mom. My aunt introduced me to my mom. She pulls up in the trap where we was living at. She introduced me to her. I'm like, okay, this is interesting. But she had like a beeper, dressed nice. So I'm like, okay,
right.
this is cool.
Right.
So she came back the next day and she was like, well, tomorrow I'm gonna come back and get you and take you, shopping or whatever. I'm like, all right, cool. Came back, took me to the mall, got me some shoes, name brand shoes, right? So I'm like, this is cool.
You're like, this is
Next thing I know, because
nice.
I was
Okay.
yeah, exactly, exactly. So I'm living at this point. I was living in Columbus with my aunt, right? Columbus, Georgia. So like it's like an hour from Atlanta. So
Hmm.
we go to the mall. Next thing you know, we're headed back to Atlanta, right? Little did I know, my mom basically was stealing me back from my aunt
Oh wow.
because my aunt didn't really want to like she had me since basically a baby. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
I'm third grade, so she had me all this time. So this is not an easy exchange. And I guess they had this conversation, and this is me assuming, right, like how this plot played out. But next thing I know, we're headed back to Atlanta, and I always been super observative. So when we get back, I see my aunt kind of calling. They're going back and forth, like, "Hey, where is he?" So I see this, but it's like, so that's when the coaches I was working with, and they were like, well, that was super traumatized because she
Correct.
took you back from an environment that you had been in. Yeah, so yeah, it was all that. But to me, the environment was better. So I think as a child, it was easier for me to process. Weird as that may seem.
No, it's not weird because you go from like you go from the trap to, the deluxe apartment in the sky.
Hmm.
Yeah, of course you're like, well, what's the problem? Like, this is great. I'm cool. Like,
Hmm.
so what
For
happened
sure,
like
it was
after
crazy.
that with like your aunt and your mom? Like, did you ever, because I know you said you're like your aunt was a crackhead and everything. I don't know if she passed, but like, did they ever reconcile that? Was that ever a problem?
Not that I know of. I never saw her again after that. So I
Oh
never saw
wow.
her again after that. I know she passed. I know she passed. From my understanding, she passed a few years ago. She also had a son and a daughter. So I was the oldest out of them. But if
Mhm.
I saw the son and daughter, I wouldn't know them.
Oh, wow.
But yeah, so yep, so it was pretty crazy. But I never saw her again after that.
That is wild. That's a wild story. Your mama done snatched you back. Auntie, we don't
Hmm.
know what's going on over here. You don't know your cousins if you saw them in the face. That's crazy, Marquel. Like
Nope.
that. See, this is what I'm talking about right here. All of
Yep.
this stuff, all they know
Hmm.
is the college dropout, and that's cool. But like
Yep.
you out here getting snatched by your mama. You
Yep.
that's crazy.
For sure. I was basically kidnapped by my mom, right?
Right. Literally. She said, "You know what? Let me go take my baby back because you want to play with me today, and I'm not going to do that."
Hmm.
That is
Yep.
crazy. So, like, I think people don't think about this a lot. And this is something that I learned in therapy, that your relationships with your parents even affect like your romantic relationships. And I didn't even realize
For
that
sure.
until I get in therapy. Um, and so I know you and Vanessa, that is my boo. Vanessa's his wife. That is Bay. Um, but I know y'all been together for a while. Do you feel like that? And we'll get to the entrepreneurship. Y'all listen, y'all will live. So, do you feel like having those traumatic experiences affected the way that you and Vanessa interacted as a couple?
For sure. Because for me, I know one of my biggest things, like her dad wasn't around growing up, right? So a lot of and one of the things I learned from like therapy and relationship coaching and all that is like a lot of times women, and I'm not an expert on the topic, so I'm not gonna go that deep, but a lot of
Right.
times women can have like dad issues, and they bring that into their romantic relationships because of dad issues, whether their dad wasn't around or their dad was around and how he carried himself. Now they bring
Hmm.
that into, or their expectations of what their dad should have been, they bring that, or what their dad was, right, or what they perceived him as, they bring
Hmm.
that into other stuff, so that can be an issue. Me, on the other hand, I was always somebody who was closed off, right? So me being so closed off emotionally, that affects things big time, because it's like, okay, this dude don't open up, he doesn't really talk about stuff,
Right.
so that hindered, you know big time, because I was always somebody who closed off, because I never really, I always had to protect myself, and then
Mm.
protect my emotions, and protect, I had to protect myself. So it's like, I don't know how much I can open up, so that of course naturally causes an issue because of that
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah. So you had to protect yourself because you felt like your mom couldn't protect you.
So just the environment. So like for so all right, so cool. So I went from that, right? So like got into that environment. My mom sold drugs, my granddad sold drugs, my cousin. So I looked up to sold drugs. I got in the streets and sold drugs. So
Mm.
in the streets, you have to protect yourself. So like in the street, you don't know who's up out to get you. Like your
Right.
closest homies can be the ones that set you up. Like your lady who you kicking it with could be the one that sets you up. Your family could be the one that sets you up. Like anybody can cross you in that environment. So you literally got to protect yourself from all different angles, because you don't really know who to trust. Like somebody can go get prison, they snitch, now you jammed up, or somebody who with you every day could be stealing from you or could be setting you up. You don't know, so you're always like, okay, one, you're here, but like you're still at the same time you like watching, seeing what's going on. And when I was in the street, we like played like at a high level, so it wasn't like just like some, I mean, we're out,
Mm.
it's out of the statute of limitations, so we can talk about it. But
Right.
you know right, but we wasn't like nickel and diamond corner cats, but it was like it was a big deal. So it's like at that moment I still gotta be moving around. Like it's to this day, I have people that reach out to me. Some people who reach out to me, like some of my bigger homies who reach out, is like I'm hesitant to even go meet up with them and be around them, because I don't know what has transpired since then. And I can't be
Mm.
like in pictures and get caught up in pictures or phone conversations. I ain't trying to get mixed up in none of that. So I'm dealing with all that from like I got in the streets like for real for like 15, 16.
Mm.
So from like 15, 16 up to like 25, 26, that's the life, I
It's
was
a long
heavily
time.
involved in. That's like a 10-year run. So
Yeah.
now, you know, you see what I'm saying? So I bring that 10 years of all this into talking about getting married and raising kids. And now I didn't have a dad growing up. Not even like a father figure, really. Not a legitimate like father figure. So now I got 4 boys. So it's like God got a sense of humor. Like, how does God expect me to raise four? This where like
Right.
God really make sure you lean on Him, because it's like, hey, I'm
Okay.
gonna make you raise 4 boys, and you have
Right.
no idea how to raise 4 boys, or what a man looks like because you didn't
Mm.
have a man to show you, so you got to lean on me, with these boys. You know what I'm saying? So I'm dealing with all that. I think that answered your question
Yes,
leading
it
up
did.
until now.
Yeah, that's a lot, but that's real though. But that's real,
Yeah.
like you said. It's like that's funny, God, because I didn't have a daddy. So what am I going? What? What? Who am I
What am I
looking
gonna
at
do?
to? Right? Who am I looking at to raise these boys to be a man when I didn't like the men that I saw was in the streets? Like,
Yep.
am I gonna put them in the streets
That's all I
too?
know.
Right, right.
Hmm.
And so I want to talk about that a little bit. Like you said, your mom, like everybody who you knew, like everybody in your family was in the streets. Because I think it's important to,
Hmm.
I'm getting there, but it's important to like see like the things that you learned, in the streets and the things you learned growing up helped you in entrepreneurship. But um I don't know if like, I think of what's the show that's on now? Power, Kanan. And how
Yep.
his mom was like, I don't want you in the streets, but he got in the streets anyway, right? Was that kind of like
Yep.
your story of like your mom was like, I don't want you doing that, but you did it anyway because that's all you knew? Or she was like, come on with it.
No, she wasn't like, come on with it. I was pulled to it. So it was like, so I tell people, you already know I do a lot of work with like the youth and stuff like that. So
Right.
I tell people that kids start selling drugs because they have common sense. It's like
Mm-hmm.
you can spend five, you can spend $100 and make $200. You can spend $50 and make $100. You can spend $100 and make $200. You can spend $200 and make $400. You can spend on 400, make $800. That's
Right.
simple math. Like,
Correct.
why wouldn't you do that?
Right.
So you telling me I can do that and I can make $400 today versus having to go get a job and work 2 weeks to get that same $400?
Right.
Like, that's common sense.
Right.
So I just had common sense and I understood math, and I was like, this just makes way more sense because
Right.
everybody who I know who works a legitimate job, everybody I know who works a job, the ideal job where I'm from, Lo, is like people want to grow up and get a job working for the city. That was the
Yep.
ideal
Yep.
job.
Yep.
I was like, no, I want to be rich. Everybody who I know who work a job, they're poor, they broke. If I ask them for $1 to go to the candy lady, they don't have it. So it's
Mm.
like, why would I do that? When I know my cousins, these cats, I asked them for $1 for the candy lady. They give me a 20. Every time I saw my granddad, he used to give us a 50. He used to give my mom a 50 to split up between me and my two sisters. I'm like, he knows something different than what he just knows
This
something
is
different.
this is the
Like my
way
granddad
right
used to
here.
drive my granddad used to drive a Cadillac. He's always be fresh, in his own granddad way, right? But he used to always be fresh, always keep a bankroll, had the rings on and all that. So it's like and they didn't know I knew what was going on, but I was always very observative. I knew when my mom was going to get it for my granddad. She was never open about it, right? She
Mm,
never told me this is what we're doing. She never was like that. I was just very observative and I saw what was going on. My sisters, I don't think they picked up on it, but I was very observative about what was going on. And I think that came from when I was with my aunt. I had to be aware of my surroundings. I
mm,
had to see what was going on. You see what I'm saying? Because
yeah,
in the environment I was in. So I had to come up with that same level of keen awareness of what's going on around me because that's what I was from 1, 2, 3 years old, 4 years old, 5 years old, 6 year old. I got all kind of junkies and crackheads around me, right? So I had to be aware of what was going on at all
yeah,
times.
yeah. You see, this is what I be talking about right here. See, you being observant as a child led you being observant with your parents, well, your mom, which led you to get into the streets, which made you make sense, which led you to entrepreneurship. Y'all see what I did there? I'm smart. Like, stop
Hmm.
playing with
That's
me.
how it works.
How
That's
it
how it
works.
works. That's how it
Okay,
works.
like that look like the grief from the childhood got you to where you listen, stop playing with me. So anyway,
Yep. That's how it
um
works.
let's talk about so when your mom passed, were you in network marketing at the time? Did you already start, the business, or where were you at when your mom died? Take me back to that.
Yeah. So when my mom died, I was still doing network marketing. Still trying to figure. I wasn't really getting no significant money. My goal, because she was going through like back and forth to meet. I mean, not meetings, but like appointments. Because what happened with my mom, she had breast cancer. Then she
Mm-hmm.
ended up getting a mastectomy. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Initially, she didn't even tell me and my sisters that she had it, but she told me first, and I encouraged her to go ahead and tell everybody once she finally got around to telling me. So she ended up getting a mastectomy and all that. Right.
Mm-hmm.
But I think from my understanding, she stopped taking the meds that she was on, and it came back in her bones, right? So when it came
Mm.
back in her bone, so she was going back and forth to the doctor and stuff like that. So was taking her through that. And we had end up moving back in with her, to help take care of her and all that. So she was kind of going through that whole process. So I was doing that with marketing, trying to figure this stuff out, trying to figure this internet stuff out. Wasn't really getting no money. One of my biggest goals was to get her to a point where she didn't have to work or do anything. And I was literally working for her company because she had a telemarketing office. So I
Mhm.
was doing a little work with her office, was still trying to figure this stuff out, at the same time. So yeah, so that's kind of where I was in my journey. She didn't see none of this. We're not here physically, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So you're in network marketing trying to figure it out. Here she is sick. Here she is passed. So like when I know you said,
Hmm.
you were kind of being because I think me and you talked about this being the person who has to like do the funeral and do this and keep everybody together, and you're just like going, 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 right? So like once it all
Yep.
got quiet, once you kind of numbed out a little bit, do you feel like, it was like, okay, I was doing that for her. Like you were doing it for yourself and like Vanessa and obviously and your kids, but like you were doing that so she didn't have to work. Do you feel like there was a point in time where you were like, well, why am I doing this anymore? Because she's not even here anymore.
So when I so the here so I so my ultimate goal was to get her to a point where she didn't have to work. But at
Right.
that point, I wasn't making enough money to do that,
Right.
right? So I wasn't making enough money, so she didn't have to work. So I was still like figuring it out. We were staying there. She was kind of handling the bills. We was kind of doing what we can help out. But I definitely went at that point to be like, hey, you don't got to work no more. I'm covering everything. That's definitely not where I was at.
Right, right. So you didn't even have to have that moment, which is good. Because
For sure.
I was telling somebody the other day, I felt like when my mom passed, obviously it sucked. And then like 4 years later, my dad passes, and I was trying to figure out like, okay, I want to do this. Like I want to buy my dad a house. I don't want him to have to work. And so when he passed, it was kind of like, well, why am I doing this anymore? Because my ultimate goal was to buy them a house, and
Right.
that's never going to happen. And so
Makes sense.
what is the purpose of doing that, right? Like what is like I had to kind of shift my focus, and I think God had to reshift my focus and to say this is what I need you to do this for, right? And so I always
Yep.
like to ask that because, but obviously you had a family, you had other things going on to do that. And so
Yep.
let's talk about how you felt, or do you feel like that grief in any type of way has played a factor in helping you build this multi-million-dollar business?
I think I think for one, right, is it all death reminds you of kind of how precious and how short life really is, right?
Mhm.
So I tell people like, look, if you need some motivation, go to a funeral, right? It shows you like one day you can be here and one day you can be gone.
Mhm.
So you literally got to maximize everything. It's kind of a it's a it's a it's a catch 22, right? So it's like you got to maximize your time and make sure you're aggressively going after your goals every day, while simultaneously showing the people you around them you love them and being present with them and maximizing the time with them as well while going after your goals. So it's like doing all that in the same thing, right?
Mhm.
So I think that's that, making sure I'm maximizing, not only maximizing my time, my calling while I'm here, but also doing my best to make sure my family is set up and all those who are connected to me are set up for when 100 plus years from now, when I'm no longer here, right? Making sure that's all set up. So I think just me being aware, keenly aware of that, and like how that can drastically change, is it makes me take every minute, every second of my day very seriously.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's good
Does
because
that
they
make
do
sense?
say yeah, no, that's good. They say that death will make you live, because it does, right?
100%.
Yeah, it'll make you live
100%.
because you like you said, go to a funeral, go to a graveyard and just stand there and feel just the all of the dreams and goals and aspirations that never made it outside of this graveyard. So yeah, no, that's real.
Yep.
So obviously we talk about death, but like there's other parts of grief, right? So, failing. And I don't even like the word failing, not maybe not succeeding in an area of life that you thought was going to
Hmm.
happen. How has that played a role? Because I do talk about like, grief of how again, I don't like the word failing, but grief of like not succeeding can help or
Right.
can affect, because you started in the network marketing world and you did
Hmm.
good. That's how we met, is in that world.
Hmm.
But
Yep. That's how we
how
met. Yep.
have yeah, so how is that those areas of not succeeding help fuel you to be like, you know what, like, no, this is it. This is gonna work.
So yeah, so I think I literally think that so like for example for that, so like something like that. I process things, everything, not everything, but I process things differently, especially when it comes to like winning, success, failure, whatever. So I
Mhm.
believe that everything was a success, right? So even when it didn't
Mm.
necessarily go my way or the way I intended it to go, I still believe it was success. So like in network marketing, I did relatively well, right, comparative to most people in that space. I think the biggest things I got from it was personal development. So I got personal development from that. And then also that began to get me on stage. And I used to be terrified of public speaking. So while I invested years into it, but never really made a significant amount of money, I mean not even enough to like do it full time technically,
Mhm.
uh, but it that helped that equipped me with some tools. And that also led me into internet marketing, right? While I was internet marketing the first few years, I didn't make any money. I actually went broke while trying to figure out internet marketing because I
Mm.
transitioned from the streets to internet, and I used all my money that I had stacked up from the streets to buy stuff online, but I wasn't implementing anything, so therefore I wasn't making no money.
Mm.
So I kind of went through that whole process, right? So that made it like a failure. So I got evicted from my apartment. Vanessa had to find me an apartment. We weren't even married then. She found me an apartment because when she met me, I was like up, like I was in the
Of course.
streets doing around, moving
Yeah.
around, and she saw me kind of go through that whole transition, and she was still there rocking with me, which was shocking because I wasn't used to like that being a reality.
Right.
Not
Right.
saying that I had experienced it. I never experienced like being up, losing it all, female still being with you. But you just kind of learn that
Right.
when you up, the ones when you ain't up, they ain't gonna be with you no more. So you kind of learn
Right.
that, right? So I'm expecting
Right.
that. So she was still rocking with me. So I was at a very low moment, but I was still figuring this. I'm like, once this cracks, I know it's gonna be on. Like when I was in the streets, when I was in the market, when I was whatever I decided to sink my teeth into, it always works. It just takes some time, right? So I was like, let me do this, let me do this, let me do this. Meanwhile, my mom dies
Mm.
during this, and I still haven't figured it out.
Right.
So it's like, but my mom was the person when I did network marketing, when everybody was telling me that it was a pyramid scheme and all that. I showed it to her because she's always been a hustler. So I was like, if it's anything scheming in it, she gonna see it. She
Right.
was the only one that told me, hey, if you market yourself, this could work. It could
Mm.
work if you market yourself.
Mhm.
So that was that seed right there. But then, fast forward, she dies. So it's like that's a setback. And at the same time, it's like that also propelled me at the same time. You know what I'm saying?
Mm.
So I think in every little failure or every little setback is always like something that, propels me forward, even in that. But I think it's about the thing that we decide to focus on, in that particular moment. And I think that kind of goes back to like me numbing, me compartmentalizing, me kind of like just closing that part of me off to like go back into grind mode. So I think that all kind of goes. So it was partially so some of it probably was like unhealthy, right? But at the same time, I kind of just channeled it into something
Right.
healthy to like get the
Right.
most out of it in that particular time period. But at some point, you still got to deal with that stuff,
Correct.
at some point, right?
Right.
So regardless if I'm numbing it out, I'm compartmentalizing that point, blocking it out. Eventually, I'm gonna have to view that and deal with that. And I think that's a lot of what I'm doing with therapy with Dr. Kirk because I'm
Yeah.
dealing with a lot of that now.
Right, all the stuff. It was like, "You know what? That's got me here." Now it's like, "It's still here. You here, but it's still right here.
Yeah,
What's up? What we talking about?" Yeah, it'll do that.
we got
So
to
I
deal with
think
that.
you made some really good points that I was thinking about as you were talking. So I think about a lot of people in that, I'll say, that heavy part of grief, right? You kind of like get stuck sometimes. You get stuck in that moment, or you're like, "Oh, like a failure," right? How you look at it is like
Mhm.
everything is success because you learn something from it. But I feel like sometimes when people are grieving, whether again it's a divorce, whether it's losing someone, whether it's whatever it is, they get stuck in this moment of failure, or they get stuck in this moment of like, I can't get out of it. Like, what is some, I know that it's just you, but like if you were to think outside of you, what is something that you feel like can help them use that to propel them forward, like you said in that moment, instead of sitting in that, like is there maybe something that they can like look at to like help them get out of that, to propel them to be able to build whatever it is that they want?
Yeah, for sure. So for me, so I use me for an example, right? So one thing I do is like part of me in the legacy I'm creating, because what's interesting about my family lineage is like when my granddad died, I that made me the last Russell. Like
Mm.
literally. Like when my
Oh, wow.
granddad died, that made me the last. Yeah, crazy, right? So my granddad died, that made me the last Russell. So I was like, okay, what we build from here is totally going to be based on what, and I feel like my four boys was God replenishing the Russell. You see what I'm saying? So
Yep.
what we build from here is totally based on the decisions I make. So it's on
Mm.
me.
Mm.
So the decisions. So I take that, and then my mom, because my mom was a Russell also before she got married, and it's like I know that they're my ancestors and they're overlooking me, they're seeing me, and it's like they're, even though they're not here with me physically, they're here with me spiritually, and it's like what I'm building now is really moving the Russell name forward. So my mom's legacy is through me, through my kids, and so forth. You know what I'm saying? So even when I kind of dip back into it, like like Mother's Day, my mom around my mom's birthday, gets super tough for me, right?
Mhm.
Sometimes I'll be like, man, my mom never. So when my mom before my mom died, I had one son, Quay, and she loved Quay. You know, that was her first grandson, but she never got to meet MJ. So sometimes that'll come up, and it's like, dang, she never got to meet MJ.
Yeah.
You know, and you know MJ asks questions
You
like
know I love MJ.
MJ be asking MJ be asking
All of 'em.
questions about her, and I'll be like,
So what
bro, like I don't
happened?
really want to.
So where did she go?
Yeah, yeah, he got
Yes.
questions, so it's like,
Right.
dang. And he be like, man, does it make you sad? Do you feel
No.
lonely? But he'll, he's super emotional
Oh,
as well. He
I
be like,
know.
never, like no matter what, I'm always here for you. So he's
Oh,
super emotional, right? So that's
MJ.
my
Love him.
emotional son, right? But she never met MJ, she never met Roro, she never met Ryan. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So it's like that bothers me sometimes, but it's like
Yeah.
there's nothing I can do about that, but shift my focus back on making sure, we're building based on the legs. So I can make that my reason why I take my foot off the pedal and just mope in that. Or I can make that my reason why I prepare myself for it. And one of the things that Dr.
Mhm.
Kirk gave me, one of the tools that he gave me is like front loading the grief. He was like, when the grief comes up, or you feel it coming up around the birthdays or around the Mother's Day, and you feel that stuff
Mhm.
coming up, like just welcome it in,
Mhm.
give it the time. Like, hey, look, all right, grief, you got 15 minutes. Let's go on and do this.
Right,
And
right,
then, all right, I got stuff to do. Like,
right.
let's get this in these 15 minutes. All right, boom, let me check in, do my breath work, and then all right, cool, I got stuff to do. Let me get back to it.
Mhm. Mhm. No,
Instead of
that's
just numbing it out and being like, I ain't dealing with it. Go on and
right.
deal with it, give it the time, and then, go on and move forward.
Right. No, that's real, because I say that all the time on this show. Dr. Kurt, we've talked about it. Like, just let it come on. Come on. Come on with your funky tail.
Mm-hmm.
Come on. Do your thing.
Yep. Yep.
Like he said, just feel just good enough. You don't have to feel superb. You don't have to feel extreme. You don't have to feel like, woo, all right. Like, just feel good enough and then continue to move
Yep.
forward. So I think that's really good, is
Mm-hmm.
to allow it to happen, number one, and then to
Yep.
kind of look for something more instead of kind of just being in that moment. Because
Yep.
that's what happened with me. Is obviously I was stuck, like stuck, and then I
Yep.
had to go to therapy because I recognized like you're turning into someone who you don't want to be. And I think a lot of that comes with
Mm-hmm.
self-awareness. And I think that you have a lot of self-aware. I think, just as Libras, we just have really good self-awareness.
Yep. I agree.
Just
I
being
totally agree.
self-aware. Right. You know what I'm saying? Like, just being self-aware to say, I don't want to be this person. Like, what's my legacy going to be? That's interesting about your granddad. That's actually kind of cool, but also a lot of pressure.
Yep.
Does that make you do you
100%.
feel a lot of pressure with that?
I don't necessarily feel pressure because it's like I think that God built me for this.
Okay,
Right. I'm
that's
cool
good.
with even if it's a lot of pressure, like I'm cool with pressure. It's not like it's too much. It's like, okay, even when I was young, I knew I was built for something different. I was on an interview yesterday and the dude was telling me like, at what point did you know you was gonna be, extremely successful or whatever? And I was like, I always knew I was gonna be extremely successful in something. I didn't know I'd be doing this,
Right.
but I always knew I was going to be extremely successful and wealthy and doing something, even if it was selling drugs and a major drug kingpin. I didn't know, but I knew it was going to be something.
I was gonna be Frank Lucas out here. It was gonna be something, okay?
Yeah, it was going to be something. I didn't know what it was though, but I knew it was going to be something.
I'm
Like God created me with that desire.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, seriously.
I know. I'm sorry, y'all. Woo, he said I didn't know if I was gonna be a major drug fan or what. Called Big Meech out
Mm.
here. Oh,
Yeah,
that
I
is
knew it's going to be
funny.
something though,
Oh, that took on my
for
spirit.
sure.
So let's get into these clients. This over $500 million, not over 250, over $500 million in
Hmm.
revenue. Um, do you think, I know that obviously we work together and so like I know you from a different capacity,
Hmm.
but do you think that we'll just say that trauma, that grief, all those things have allowed you to been able to uh help them in a different type of way? Because I know like you said, you're very much in the head, and Dr. Kurt's trying to get you to drop it down here emotionally, but
Hmm.
how do you think that has helped you in being able to serve these clients in the capacity that CAU does serve the clients and lead?
So I think, yeah, for sure. I think one of the things is like me being number one, just like caring about people, right? Really just understanding that me personally, I've gone through a lot. But
Mm,
if it was 10 people in the room, people can go hours just sharing everything that they've been through, and everybody will continue to one up each other, right? So it's like, yeah, I've been through a lot, but I know other people, my story, other people would totally trump that,
right.
so you don't really know what people are going through. So I think us being in tune with that, because a lot of people say, y'all are so patient, because we get it. Like we've been through a lot. So not only have you gone through a lot, but you're still going through. Not only are you still going through and still bringing past stuff in, you got real life stuff happening every day outside of the business. And then you add business on top of that, that just makes life way more complicated. So I think by us being in tune with that, it helps us become patient with people. And by us being patient with people, they see that we actually care about people. And that actually, like, they're like, okay, these people really care. And it's not just like a cash grab for them. So I think that's one of the biggest things. And then when we add therapy on, I tell people, once you start doing that personal work, that therapy, you start seeing other people's trauma, and it's
Mhm.
crazy.
Mhm.
It is you be looking at somebody and you just become so empathetic. You'll be like, not from a. I'm saying not. That's why I want to be clear. Seeing other people's trauma, not from a judgmental standpoint, but it just makes you so much more empathetic to people because you can literally see and hear their trauma, and it's crazy. Even while you're on your healing journey, because I think healing is like a ever. I don't think you ever get to the point where you're healed. I
For
think if you
sure.
get to that point, you're tricking yourself, right? So I think life is a healing journey, just like life is a personal growth journey, right? It's a lifelong journey. But you will start seeing that, and now you can really tap into it, and you can hear not just what people are saying, you can hear what they're not saying, and you can feel it. Like it be to the point sometimes like I can reach out. I be like, "Hey, you all right?" Like I just feel like a extreme heaviness from you for some reason. Like you okay,
Mhm.
right? But I
Mhm.
think that really helps out when it comes with dealing with human beings and understanding that human beings are complex,
Correct.
and you add business to it, and it just makes it way much more complex because all of your trauma as a child, it shows up as an adult. So I tell people all the
Mhm.
time. I even tell the kids I'm working with. I'm like, look, give your parents grace. Like your parents are growing up. Like you're watching us. Like as a child, you're watching us grow up. Like
Mhm.
you're not. I know we try to portray like we're this human being. We're grown. We got it all figured out. Nah, nah, nah. We don't got it figured out. We
Right.
don't got most of life figured out. We're still growing up. So we're raising you, and you're watching us grow up while we're dealing with all of our trauma that we haven't dealt with. and then we're projecting all that trauma on you as a child, and we're raising you based on that trauma if we haven't dealt with that stuff. So it's like it's complex, and now we're developing complex human beings and
Right.
putting that trauma onto our kids. And then we got the nerve to add business
And
to the
then
mix.
have the
You know what I'm saying? Which makes it even
audacity.
more
Right.
to add business to it. So it's like
Right.
now it becomes that much more crazy. And then now you're a business person as an adult, and this kind of goes back into answering your question. Is like helping people become aware of their blind spots. So it's
Mm.
like, hey, you're not afraid to sell because you feel like you're taking advantage of people. You're afraid to sell because when you were a child, your parents told you not to take money from strangers, and you still running that same program. You're scared to become wealthy. You're scared to become rich. You're scared to become wealthy because when you was growing up, your pastor or your grandma who was heavily in church or auntie said that Jesus was poor, so you should be poor, right? They said that people like us don't drive cars like that. People like us don't have money like that. People like us don't live in homes like that. So now here you are, 30, 40, 50 years old, still with that same programming, and that's literally all trauma that you bring into business, and you wonder why you made $50,000 last month, but you're still broke because you still got the programming that you got to rob Peter to pay Paul. It's better to look like you have money than to actually have it. It's better to just give it away because if you feel like you're getting more, somebody else gets less. So you running all that program, which is all trauma just from a child. Now you bring it to a business, and you wonder why your business don't work.
Oh my God. Jesus. Oh my God. Whoo! Yeah, let me drink some water because the way that you just don't do that no more. Do you hear me? Oh my God. Somebody just got delivered. Do you hear me? Delivered.
Mhm,
Okay, because that is
mhm.
what they they needed to hear. Father God. All right. Okay. Well, wow. Sorry. I just had to like process that for a second because that was sound clip. So
It's a thing, right?
it's that's when you start when you decide to start going through your own healing journey and seeing others. I tell people all the time. I think I was talking to Dre the other day and I was telling him, I was like, when you're grieving, you don't feel seen, you don't feel heard, and you don't feel safe. And a lot of times when you decide to, like you said, go on that journey of healing, you start to see people. And that's all people want. People just want to be seen. People just want to be
Yeah,
heard and they just want to feel safe. Those are like three basic necessities that people want. And a lot
yeah,
of times, like you said, that's why they operate in the way that they do, whether it's in business or other, because they don't feel like anyone sees them. But when you start
yeah,
going through a journey and you see yourself, you can see others. And I know that's why CAU is successful as it is because all of the coaches, all of the support team, me doing the events, like we all see all the clients. Like we
yep,
see everybody, right? And we see each
100%.
other. And we see each other.
Hmm.
We can argue and
Yep,
laugh and cry and do all that, but we see each other and we know like this is a real life family and like we see what's happening in the family. So,
for sure.
woo, that was good. That was a good one. So last question cuz you ain't going to be out here snatching all of my listeners' edges, okay? So if someone is listening to this episode now, later, 100 years from now, and they're like, you know what? Like, I want to build a business and I have this trauma and I'm ready to push through. And, like, he just snatched my soul on that last response. What do you want them to take away from this when they're listening to this episode?
I would say that number one, understand that you're enough, right? So number one, that you're enough. That's first and foremost. And then I would say on top of that, look at yourself as it's this when you ask me that, it's this visual that came to me. It's like I can't think of what that statue. You probably know what it is because you're super smart. Like it's a statue, and it's a guy. It looks as if he's carving himself.
Yep.
You know what I'm
I know
talking
what you're
about?
talking about. Yeah, I don't know the name of it, but I know what you're talking about.
Look at yourself. Understand that you're enough, and you're already enough, just as you are. God created you that way. But soon as you hit the earth, you automatically start taking on the trauma of other people.
Mm.
Like immediately, like when you came through the passageway, the vaginal passageway, or like even as you were like a little embryo inside your mom, right? Immediately start taking on the trauma of your mom,
Mhm.
right? So I was just in Rockford, Illinois, speaking at this school. Shout out to Kicker First, Entrepreneur Academy, Brother Henry and everybody. And Brother Henry, they're part of the Nation of Islam. And I think the Nation of Islam, they're super interested and intriguing to me. I like how they move and the whole. I'm not a part of it,
Mhm.
but I love like how they move and all that, right? So me and him was chopping it up, and he was basically talking about how when his daughter is brilliant. Shout out to Amaya, she's brilliant. She's 11, or brilliant, right?
Of course.
And he was telling me that when his wife was pregnant, Mr. Farrakhan has this CD set or this program called Birthing a God.
Mm.
And he talks about how he doesn't recommend women eat hot foods when they're pregnant, watch scary movies, and some other stuff because the baby takes on all that. So all the emotion that the mom is taking on, the baby takes that on even as a child, right? So what does that mean? All of the trauma that your mom is dealing with, and even your dad is dealing with, because he's projecting that on your mom, you're taking that on as an embryo. So you taking on stuff that you don't even know you're taking on before you even can take on stuff. And then as you come out, you're getting all that as well. And then this nurse who holds you, whatever trauma they got going on, that can be exchanged to you. Not to mention all
Mm.
the other stuff that's going on in the hospital and all that good stuff, right? So now you start watching TV or being exposed to your environment or whatever. Like you were literally born perfect. You came perfect, but then you brought on all this other stuff. So at this point, give yourself some grace for whatever that has happened up into this point. Don't beat yourself up, but just begin to like carve yourself, just like that statue we was just talking about. Just carve it off. You can start cutting it off. Like it doesn't happen instantly, but like that way of thinking about money, that way of thinking about relationships. Just because past relationships has failed doesn't mean they're not good men out there or they're not good women out there. Doesn't mean that you can't be healthy. A lot of people eat based on trauma. Doesn't mean that you can't change your
Mhm.
eating habits, your mind, and how you think. Just start brushing that stuff away. And most importantly, get some help to do it. Like stay plugged into. This is what Lo is doing is brilliant because even in business, people think that I know I'm super long on your answer, but people
No, this
think
is good.
that it's all about how do I sell? What do I say? How do I do marketing? It ain't got nothing to do with none of that. Like you got to plug into this show and getting over your trauma and getting over that grief. When you do that, business is 90% mental and inner game.
Yep.
Getting over yourself, you becoming a better person, a human being, that grief, that trauma. Once you get over that, business becomes easy,
Mhm.
right? You become a better business person. You become a better leader. You become a better money person. All that good stuff. But you got to deal with this stuff. This is why I think what you're doing with this show. Well, I know that what you're doing with this show is so important because people are getting get down to like the root of the issue, right? So it's like carving that stuff off, getting you some help, staying plugged into what Lo is doing. Any programs that Lo offer, buy those. Get you a therapist. A business person should have a coach and a therapist. They shouldn't
Mhm.
rely on their coach to be their therapist. You should have both, right? Great entrepreneurs have coaches and therapists. But to wrap all this in a fine bow, know that you're enough. Know that you came here perfect. You're still perfect. Now, just all the other stuff that's not serving you, just start carving it off and then get back in alignment with who God created you to be. And you can literally have whatever it is you want. And we live in the greatest time in the history of the world to have whatever it is we want, but we just got to tap into it.
Look, I was about to start clapping in this mic. That was butter, baby. Just butter. Uh, I don't even want to say nothing else after that. Just tell the people where they can find you because I can't. I can't.
So yeah, so if you want to connect, hit me up. Whatever your favorite social media platform. So if you're on Instagram, hit me up on Instagram. Everything is just my name, Marquel Russell, MarquelRussell. If you hit me on Instagram, Facebook, whatever, shoot me a DM. Let me know. Hey, I was on show with Lo. Just want to connect. Reach out. I'm here. If you're a business owner and you're a coach or consultant, you want to get more clients for your business, you want to get more leads, more clients for your business, go to paidadplaybook.com. So that's PAID ad playbook.com. Get our whole playbook for free. That shows you how to get 50 to 100 leads every single day that convert into clients. So you can get that for free and just reach out. I'm definitely here and stay plugged into the show. What Lo is doing is amazing. I'm super proud of you, Lo. Keep this
Appreciate it.
thing going.
Listen, you done dropped all the gems. I'm about to tell my producer, you about to put bomb sounds in there. You about to put all of that. Cause nope. Oh God. God, Marquel. You just as much as you are my favorite debate person, you really are one of my favorite human beings. And I say, I joke about it all the time, but literally one of my favorite human beings. You're just a solid human. So I appreciate you
Thank you.
being
Thank you.
here, sharing so many gems. I know somebody got a breakthrough today, and man, I'm about to drop the episode tomorrow. Sorry, but for
Let's do
real,
it.
I
Let's do it. Let's
appreciate you,
do it.
bro. I love you. I'm about to get into this wrap up, but thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. That's all I got.
I love you too. Thank you. Thank you.
Woo! Is anybody else's edges snatched? Do I still have some? Y'all see? Okay, I still got my edges because Lord have mercy. Yo, that was good, y'all. That was good. Don't you see why I love my brother? Just love him. Like I said, the dynamic duo, the one and the two, dynamic duo. Um, I'm just grateful that they were able to come on and he was able to come on and just talk his talk, honey. Just talk his talk. It's absolutely wild. So yeah, I don't even know where to even wrap up because he said so many things, just so many things about the things that you've learned in the past and to why you kind of operate and navigate in that space when it comes to business, right? And even I think something really important that he said was being a business owner, helping clients, um, or hiring employees or anything like that, right? How important it is to heal and and do your own healing because it allows you to see others. And in business, that's really important, right? I think a lot of businesses have gotten away from that. And I think because right now they say we're in the great resignation, not the great recession, the great resignation is where we're at currently. I don't know if that's worldwide or just in the US, but a lot of people are quitting their jobs and turning to entrepreneurship or trying to find something else because that people aspect, that being seen aspect is what people are looking for. And I think that happened in the pandemic is like, yes, I've been at this job for 15 years, 20 years, 5 years, 2 years, 6 months, but I don't feel seen. I don't feel heard. Right. And so understanding that when you're going through your own healing journey, to see that in other people is major in the entrepreneurship realm when you're working with people, especially, right? Because if people trust you, they will buy from you, they will purchase from you. But besides that, if you are healing yourself, and I don't want to say you're helping others heal, but like by me healing in my journey, so many people have reached out and said, "Thank you for being transparent. Thank you for being vulnerable. Your words have touched me," right? And so I'm able to see people and help them feel seen in their grieving journey because I chose to go through a healing journey. Obviously that I'm still going through myself, right? Um and I'm in this entrepreneurship space. And so it's just really important to make that decision to go through your healing journey, especially if you're talking about, launching a business in 2022 so that you can be able to really excel in that and really understand the human aspect of it, because that is what we all as human beings, we all need a connection. Like when God made us, he didn't make us for man to be alone, right? And so we all need a connection. And so, people are longing for that. People are looking for that and people want that. And so to be able to go through that journey yourself and to be able to see that in other people is what I think is what makes a great entrepreneur, right? And what makes CAU such an amazing company and have amazing clients, right? And so I think that was really important, and him just saying like, you're enough, that statue. I'm gonna post it on my social media. So if you're not following me, follow me on social media at This Two Shots Like Podcast, because I know exactly what statue he's talking about. It's like a man. The man's kind of like skinny, and then like the statue is like bigger, right? And so sometimes like fitness trainers use it as a way of like carving off the fat and things like that. But to this point, you come out of the womb, you come through the birth canal into a space of trauma. Everything that your mom was holding on to, dealing with, that your dad was holding on to, dealing with, you already are born into that, right? You born into that. Like, you come out crying. Think about, like, just have a second and think about that. You literally come out the womb crying because you're used to this safe, warm environment, and you come out into this world of chaos, and you like, they have to pat you so they can make sure you're breathing and crying. So you immediately start crying. So you immediately have this trauma in your life. You weren't crying in your mama's stomach. You was just just chilling in the womb, warm, rolling around. And here I come out into this chaos, right? So you already have to deal with that. And then all the other stuff that's compounded as you're going through life, right? And so, just give yourself grace. Like, I always say it all the time on every single episode. You have to do that because honestly, like, a- anytime, I'll say a lot of times, we're not, or let me just say, we don't get to choose the cards that we're dealt. Like, God, when he brings us to this world and he brings us to our parents and to the family, we don't get to choose. We don't get to decide that. Only God can decide that. And I know sometimes it's like, God, why would you put me in this situation? And, sometimes we really don't know the reason until something happens and we're like, that's what I needed. I needed that to get to this, to be able to do that. Right. And so, just continue to work on yourself. Like, you were enough as a baby, you're enough now, and you're going to always be enough. And I know that grief will have you thinking that you're not enough. Right? Ask me how I know. It'll have you thinking that you're not enough. It'll have you thinking that you can't do this. It'll have you thinking you're going to be stuck in that space forever. Right? But just know, like Marquel said, you are enough. Just continue to chip away at it every single day. Continue to heal every day. Continue to grow every day. And that's what's going to make you successful. That's what's going to make you thrive. That's going to make you be able to create the life that you always wanted to live. And so, as I always say, as you're going through the process of trying to heal, as you're going through the process of trying to chip away at all that trauma and at that old stuff that's been in your life, you know what I'm going to say. As I always say, be kind to yourself and give yourself grace, because if you don't, who will? That is it, you guys. Thank you so much again for listening to another week's episode of This Too Shall Suck podcast, a fresh perspective on grief. If you haven't already, follow me on social media on Instagram and on Facebook at This Too Shall Suck podcast. Definitely send me a message, send me a DM. Y'all know I love replying to you guys. And as I always say, if you don't have social media, I get it. You can definitely send me an email at hello@this2shallsuckpodcast.com. Let me know what resonated with you. If you have any topics that you want to hear, some people even, send some guests, send it to me. I love hearing from you guys. This episode and every episode was produced by my amazing producer, Mike Sick. All the original music you hear in This Too Shall Suck podcast was produced by Jimmy Samaj. Guys, again, as I always say, I love you guys so much, and I'm sending you love and light in your life because you deserve it. I'll see you on the next episode. Mwah. All right, my loves, I hope you all enjoyed that episode. You can actually listen to This Too Shall Suck podcast, a fresh perspective on grief, on all listening platforms. And make sure, if you're not already, following me on social media on Instagram and on Facebook at This Too Shall Suck podcast. And you can hit my website as well. Learn more about your girl, Loryn Denise, at www.this2shallsuckpodcast.com. If you love this episode, if it resonated with you, make sure you hit that like button. Let me know, because I know I need to make more videos like that for you. And meet me in the comments. Let's talk about it. I love talking to y'all. And make sure you definitely hit that little bell, that little subscribe button. Thank you guys as always, and I'll see you on the next episode.